Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike. Wait, my name's Tim Holliday, actually. I'm back to understand a little bit more about Mike. We'll talk about that a little later in this town hall meeting. We have a great show going on tonight, but here's, whether you like it or not, Mike Netter. Mike.
Whether you like it or not, we still live in California. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's town hall. For those of you on Zoom tonight, and literally the couple thousand people plus we have watch on Facebook Live. You know, it's been an interesting week, and I'm going to start with a rant like I always do. And for just everybody out there to know, Oren is out home wrecking. No, not in the typical metaphor. He's literally rebuilding out there, so he's out in the woods, probably where Gavin would like to keep him, and may have trouble participating in the show. We're going to have another Mike on in a second, Mr. Alexander, talk about one of the hottest topics of the day. But I want to start with my Monday, if you will. And my Monday was spent with Oren and a few others up testifying for the minute they gave us, literally at the state capitol. And it was interesting at the state capitol because, of course, they want to quash direct democracy. And they're having this major debate about, what should we do with recalls? What's going on? And one of the major complaints they had to show what hypocrites we have running the state of California was the cost of special elections. They're like, well, the Gavin one cost 200 and some odd million. And there's all these recalls throughout California, up and down the state, and look how much these special elections cost us. Now, I want you to be aware that a certain member chairing this actual recall committee is rumored, along with 5 other members of the Democratic legislature, to be resigning their posts before the regular election. And for those of you not quite familiar with how California works, that means that's going to trigger, yes, 5 or 6 special elections at a cost to the public, at the hands of the Democrats, why they debate about special elections. Now, the hypocrisy of that absolutely floors me. What's really scary, frightening, is with the overwhelming majority, we say this all the time, and why we keep doing this, and the United People from the recall under Rebuild California, is that we have to take matters peacefully, for those of you who are watching on the press, into our own hands. We have to do something to bring change to California. And we have this powerful tool called direct democracy. And I want to give you a brief refresher tonight before we talk about one of the hottest topics with our guest that's literally up and down the state. Direct democracy is, in effect, gotten a lot of publicity because of the recall of Gavin Newsom. And we, the people, have the ability to recall state and local officials, including a district attorney in Los Angeles, including the governor of California. We, the people, have a right to have a voice. And for those of you, for a quick education in civics, which, as I say, is not a Honda, but actually something they used to teach in school, we'll get back to that in a second, it means that it's 12% of the people that voted for governor last time. Once they sign legally a voter the petition, we could put a recall on the ballot. When 5% of the people that voted for governor last time signed a petition, it becomes an initiative or a law. When 8% of the people that voted for governor last time sign a petition that's a constitutional amendment, like school choice we're going to get to tonight, we, the people, have the right to write our own laws. And remember, these movements are critically important. And up and down the state, it is literally a record. And I thought I was imagining this. I heard this from some paid petitioners out there and people that have been in the space a lot longer than I have. But the LA Times, and I hate quoting the LA Times, but backed it up. This is actually a record for the number of initiatives that are on the ballot. And it's fascinating to me, going back to what we watched Monday, to see them debate about how they can change it to make it easier on them. I mean, forget the people of California, because they're like, it makes it a little bit hard on the politicians. It makes it a little bit hard on the rich people, etc. but never brought up about the people. But the major point, which gets missed, which I got up and gave them a rant about, was if you really want more people, make it harder, raise the bar in initiatives, get more people to vote. Okay. And they can't get more people to vote. They've tried mail-in ballots. They've tried everything they can. But the reality is the majority of California doesn't come out and vote. Now, rolling into tonight's show, let me explain why that's really important. Because this all starts, and as you can tell, I didn't turn out so well and I went to public education. All right. And it's gotten worse since I went way back there in the Stone Age when I rode a cart to school and learned math on the abacus. But as you saw at the beginning, our video, they've been trying for years to, with Common Core and other things, to make public education. We pump a required amount of money each year into California schools. And what's it gotten us? About 47th ranked in the country now that we're ranking us against other states. What's it gotten us? Schools which don't teach civics. It's gotten us mandatory vaccinations, which we're the only state. Think about this, the only state that demand that. It's gotten us everything but better educated children. It has gotten us really big unions, which are electing politicians that really aren't for the good of the people. So rolling on tonight, I've talked before about the amazing journey of the recall. And one of the amazing people I met is our next guest, Mike Alexander. And as you know from listening to me, I can pronounce his name because it's the same as mine. And as I've been doing this for about 2 years, Mike has literally been working on school choice for literally over a decade. And tonight, if you have questions and you're on Facebook, log into the Zoom link or hit us with questions because we want to get these questions answered. This is a California constitutional amendment that only needs about 988,000 signatures plus the extra to get us to the point where we can have the ability to make the choice to bust the union's grip that they have in the state with the teachers and maybe actually get our children a decent education. And with that, I'm proud to announce,
Hold on. Also, if you see this on social media, go ahead and share it everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point, Tim Holliday. And it's good to have Tim Holliday back for the holidays. And I do have to throw that in. Our producer who does all the graphics and the fabulous pregame. Promote this everywhere. We talk about action items with Rebuild California. This is important to note. School choice is something that is probably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, that needs to go on the ballot. Mike Alexander is the man who I wanted to talk about it, answer a lot of the questions that I get. We're going to talk about a little bit about the event we're doing tomorrow. But with this, I'm proud to introduce Mike Alexander. Mike, the screen is yours until I decide to speak up.
Well, very good. Mike, Netter, everybody on Rebuild California, thanks very much for having me on tonight. And thank you, Tim Holliday, for managing this broadcast. The reputation of your organization and of this broadcast precedes you. As Mike mentioned to you, my name is the same as his, Mike, last name Alexander, and I have the privilege to be the president of the California School Choice Foundation and the chair of Californians for School Choice. We are currently working and have title and summary and are circulating an initiative petition for signature that will place school choice on the November 2022 ballot. Now, to come directly to the point, what are the key features of that bill? We call it the Educational Freedom Act, and it has 4 key features. Number 1, on request of any parent, an education savings account will be established in that student's name. Number 2, annually that child's account will be credited with the child's share of basic educational spending in California, otherwise known as Proposition 98. And that amount is currently $14,000 per year, and it will rise and be adjusted with future Prop 98 revenues. By the way, that's not all we spend, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Number three, the parents, not the zip code, not the school board or the teachers union. The parents can direct those funds to a participating private or religious school, an accredited private or religious school. And number four, save any money left over for college, vocational training, or other qualified educational expense. Every child, every K-12 child in California is eligible for an ESA, which is what we call the education savings account. Every child has the freedom to attend a school of his parents' choice. And for those who complain that this is going to destroy the public schools, I reply as follows: no, you already did that, because the schools here in the state of California, as you know, are 48th in the nation. And this wonderful investigative report that you played before, the so-called pregame show, what a wonderful show. I've seen parts of it before, parts of the reports show up elsewhere, but this shows you the dire circumstances of California education. What is their reply? More money, more of the same. They have no plan. Nobody has a plan. Well, we do. We have a plan, and that is put the parents in charge. And the net effect, ladies and gentlemen, of the Educational Freedom Act is not to defund public schools, but rather to redirect the money and let that money follow the student from here on out, rather than following the zip code, rather than following the school board, rather than following the teachers union's mandate. It's very simple. It'll operate not unlike the GI Bill, which we've had around for what, at least 70 plus years. They passed it after World War II. And generations of American veterans have attended school, both religious, secular, technical, you name it, even seminaries. They've gone and used their GI Bill for time immemorial. All we're doing is following a practice that we followed in this country before. You know, we have a massive amount of failure in our inner city schools. And that is as we all know, you heard in the pregame video here, you heard about how terrible it is. A complete breakdown in academics, a complete breakdown in student discipline, complete chaos in the schools. And the only thing that's consistent is the desire of the government and of its employees, its agents, through the public school teachers union here in the state of California, to maintain this death hold that they have on the hearts, minds, and souls of our youth. And this is a situation that we absolutely have to correct. And nowhere is it more critical than in the inner cities and the cities throughout California, where the school population is predominantly Hispanic. We are developing here in the state of California, ladies and gentlemen, a terrible situation. We have a growing underclass here in the state of California that is characterized by ignorance, poverty, unemployment, and yes, crime. Last night, I had the privilege of addressing a large group of California pastors, and the introduction was given by Bishop Juan Carlos Mendez, who happens to be a Baptist bishop. Wonderful fellow, oversees around 2,300 pastors and churches in California. And as he characterized the current system, and by the way, he taught in it many years ago, he characterized the current system as a pipeline to prison. Now, it is not uncommon for those of our wonderful people who work with and for school choice to get these petitions signed. And I'm certain that many of you on this broadcast tonight are among those people. But it's not uncommon to go into an area like one of our leaders did, Piedmont, up in California. Piedmont, you know, it's one of the most wonderful neighborhoods in the state of California, wealthy, remote, and its schools work. or at least the residents are satisfied with them. So their reply was, well, why should I worry about it, right? I'm satisfied with my schools. I won't sign this petition. I don't need to. But they're wrong, aren't they? Because of the way that our society is structured, the future of the poorest among us is a future that we share with them. This is a growing underclass that has to be supported by the criminal justice system, by the welfare system, by the unemployment system, and by every other kind of system that has to offer services in relation to people who have not had access to quality education. And when we look back over our own careers, we can trace our own success, most of us, to having access to quality education. Now, here in the United States, and particularly here in California, we've always been characterized by mobility, by social, economic, and political mobility. That is the ability of people to come from nowhere and get to somewhere, to come here with nothing and end up with something and to be successful. California was the place where you went, because we invented the future here. But over time, we've realized that this social mobility relied upon and assumed access to quality education. That is the predicate of advancement in the state of California. Now, my parents, didn't have any money. My parents were post-war people. They both had high school education. I went on to become the first of my family, my broader family, aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it, the first to go to college, the first to go to law school, the first to have a doctorate degree. Is it because I'm so brilliant? No, I had access to quality education. I benefited from school choice. That is, my parents chose and sacrificed to send me to a school where I would have access to quality education. Whether I succeeded or not is in your judgment, not mine. Mike, I see you wanting to ask a question. Is that it?
Some basic notes. Yeah, some questions from to keep it simple, because remember, unlike you, Mike, I had a public education, so I'm a little bit slower here. So bear with me. So some of the questions I want to make sure first off, I'm going to ask you this 14 times, your website.
Yes,
your website.
Schoolchoice.org. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Next, and P.
Hey, Mike, you're breaking up out there.
You're freezing up because it's.
I'll wait for you.
I do have another way to bring Mike in if we won't need to.
There we go. I just lost Mike. I'm on a pretty good
I'm back now. There you are. Okay.
Oh, all right.
All right. You got a little bit here, but I want to get to a couple things here. First off, I get asked a lot by parents, the 13 or 15,000, if they don't use it, right? First off, do they have to go to the school that they send their kids to? Will they have a choice of curriculums?
Yes, they will. So, if you're Catholic, you can go to Catholic school. Protestant, Muslim, Hindu, whatever, you can pick a school of your own, or a non-sectarian school. So you can access a school there. Now, maybe the other question that's being asked is, hey, will these schools, if they accept the money, will they have controls on curriculum? In other words, will the state be able to do indirectly what they can't do right now? Well, the answer is, we thought about that. It was very much in the forefront of our considerations, and we have specific provisions in the initiative that we have, which prevent the state from discriminating against private participating schools or refusing to fund them based upon religion or curriculum. They cannot mandate curriculum. The only thing that these schools have to be, Mike, and all of you wonderful people out there, is accredited That's the only thing. Accreditation can be sought from a variety of organizations, and the state has no direct control over the accreditation of these schools. So we're very restricted in how we do it. Likewise, we specifically provide that no one will be able to not only demand a certain curricula, but refuse to pay for faith-based materials. They are a specifically authorized expense for people. So we do not get nothing ever prevented, of course, the government from trying to do something, and we know that they are going to be vicious in their response to us. And we can never tell, of course, what courts are going to do, but if you're going to fight back against the teachers union, you have to start with a good bill. And our bill is not just a good bill, it is a great bill. And we have all of these protections written into it. Mike, have you been able to get back?
Yeah, I got back on there. We're having
There you
internet
are.
problems all up and down the state here tonight, mine included. That's one reason
problem.
Lauren's on. But
Maybe
anyway,
so we're working.
next, probably. Next question is, and I'm not sure what got missed there, is there's a couple things on the ballot that I want to take some time to explain here that are questions we have. So I think you explained about the curriculum. It also covers homeschooling. And I don't want to understand a couple things, and a misnomer, even by members of, I've heard of our illustrious Republican Party, is, first off, ballot measures don't compete. So while there is another school choice initiative out there, and I know you'll explain a couple of the basic differences, they both can get on the ballot. I also want to explain something else. Oddly enough, there is been a lawsuit going on for about probably 5 or 6 years, where an advocate has sued California, saying, look, not California children have the right to a free and quality education. And the courts go, well, it says free. It really doesn't say it has to be a good one. So one of the initiatives on the ballot right now is about students getting a quality education in public schools that will be defined. This is different than school choice. But there are two initiatives, one of them barely hitting the streets. So just give us a brief. And again, you don't really compete, but there's a slight difference between the two. Can you cover that one? Because we get a lot of questions.
And of course, it's in the mind of the beholder as to whether these differences are small or great. On the surface, the differences seem to be slight. We are starting with $14,000. They are starting with $13,000. However, the full implementation of their education savings account, which, by the way, they basically took our work, copied it, and went another direction after long discussions, and that's neither here nor there. But they delayed their full implementation for almost 4 or 5 years. So a lot of the people who are on this broadcast, if you have an adjusted family income of over $100,000, you're not going to be eligible for this program for several years. So we're dealing with means testing, class warfare, and really they've offered no reason for it. The other thing that they do here is that they exclude most homeschoolers from the accumulation of the affidavit. In other words, if you're not enrolled actively in a school, then you don't get the tuition credit to the savings account. Our account offers full protection for all California families, and this permits you to continue to educate under your private school affidavit and accrue your $14,000 or whatever it may be in future years per year and save it up for high school or college. They have a cap. They limit the amount of money that you can save and use for college at $60,000. Now, why they do that, they haven't said. But those are only the slight differences or the facial.
Okay, so bottom line is, again, to keep it kind of simple for me, not for our audience who's much smarter than I am, is that, okay, so we understand means testing, it covers homeschooling. Other questions we have here, and these are really good ones and typical of the ones I get. One is, who's dispensing the funds? How will the process would work under your initiative? And the next question is one that I don't understand at all, is, about the curriculum. Obviously, you can't keep your kids at home and train them how to, buy crack cocaine. But
Right.
so how are the funds distributed?
Sure.
Who determines the funds being distributed? And what kind of basic, when you talk about Common Core at the beginning, the basic structure if you homeschool your kids, the curriculum itself?
Sure. Let's start with how does the money work? And this is where, when you get under the hood, it's really important. Under our bill, it is what happens basically. Let's start back with the enrollment process. Under our bill, and pretty much under the competing bill, the parents file a notice of their intention to basically to leave the public school, and they request that an education savings account be established. Then they go out and find a participating school that wants to sign up for the program. You got to have somebody who's ready to take that money. So once all that contract is signed and submitted to the ESA trust fund, which is managed and trust by the same people who manage the 529 funds. It is a government authorized entity, but it is not an agency of the superintendent. It's an independent trustee with fiduciary obligations. They get that contract, they send the money only to a participating school. So for all of the folks listening in from the press, despite what you might say, neither homeschooling parents nor any parents ever touch the money. They never get the money. The only way that money can be spent now or ever is by a participating school. It's very carefully defined. And that participating school, K-12, has to file an audited statement each and every year to show how they use those funds. It's very simple. And nobody ever gets to play with the money. Now, as to curricula, those curricula are as variable as they are right now. So you can go to a school that emphasizes whatever you want, and the only criterion that is to be applied is accreditation. So you might go to a technical school or a vocational school where they're emphasizing the manual trades, but they're making sure that you get all the other things that you need.
Basic skills, reading, writing, and
Basic skills, absolutely.
Oh, right.
You might go to a religious school where they want you to go, where they've got regular classes in religion or whatever your faith happens to be. That's okay. We clearly protect it in our bill. Not so much on the so-called Grinnell bill, Fix California. Believe me, it doesn't fix a lot of things. Law is going to be a nightmare in operation, and they should have just copied everything out of our bill instead of half of it. They would be a lot better off, and we'd be able to support each other. But this is not happening, and it's going to be a nightmare for private schools. Now, back to your point, what do these measures compete? Well, theoretically they do, but voters are free to sign either or both petitions, and then that one or the other or both will go on the ballot November 22, and whichever one of our measures gets the greatest number of votes will become the controlling measure. And that, of course, will be the Educational Freedom Act, because it is just such a much, much better bill. And the schools, of course, will know. And one of the big things that we do, we make sure that the state has to transfer that money twice a year. And the full amount has to be allocated for the next semester. And then those monthly payments to the participating schools have to be paid in 9 equal installments starting August 15th and continuing each month thereafter until May 15th. And that's guaranteed Mike, I know you do a lot in real estate, a lot of business people on here. You know that cash flow is the key to operating a business or securing lending or to go out there and build a school and borrow money for construction funds. They want to know how you're going to cash flow. And our bill makes sure that the government can't screw around with the cash flow because they've done that in the charter schools. Yes, Mike.
And we have another question here. And again, these are really good ones. So this question, I'm going to read it verbatim. So Mike, referring to you, of course, not to me. That's so confusing. Under your bill, homeschooling will not be available unless they're using an accredited homeschooling curriculum. Is that true? But I think that's true now, right? You can't just homeschool your kids without an accredited curriculum.
Well, that's right. You know, you have to file a private school affidavit, and your instruction and content at some level have to be approved. You have to demonstrate that you're educating your child. That will not change. In fact, nothing is really going to change. However, to paraphrase a close personal friend of mine, if you like your public school, you can keep your public school. If you like your public school teacher, you can keep her. If you're a homeschooler and you don't want to participate in this, you don't have to. But you can continue to educate your child as you have been in compliance with the statute and still receive and accumulate that $14,000 a year and save it for college or high school or 7 or 8, whatever you and your family decide you're going to do. Unlike the Grinnell bill, which is specifically will prevent parents educating under the private school affidavit and basically require that you enroll in the school. So we're the only ones that take care of the homeschoolers. Terrible oversight on their part. They should have fixed it when they had a chance.
I want to stress again a couple things that we have, and I apologize to any from the left watching this. I'm going to use two very obscene words: democracy and capitalism. Okay, so right. I don't want to get ahead of myself. One is democracy is no matter what gets on the ballot, the people get a vote on it and you will get a choice. And under capitalism, I mean, part of the challenge, and I was kind of laughing, I wrote my team a little text last night, said, watching the schools here, the kids were getting, don't get thrown out, got free haircuts, right? Forced vaccinations. It's kind of like the military, which the government isn't always efficient on by definition. So under the bills that we have now, more private schools, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, will be able to come up and compete with the public schools because it will grow that ecosphere. Part of the problem right now, and before we run on a show, I read a very interesting article today that had a very good point. It's actually yesterday. In the state of California, due to a loophole, although we publish teachers' salary for some of the teachers I see in our feed here tonight, we don't publish the administrator's salary. Right. So we don't really know, and I used to deal with schools a lot, that infrastructure is in between. But then the article went on to say in favor of school choice, it said, if you think about it, if you have 25 kids in a classroom times round math, 15,000 a year, that's 400 grand. You would think for some of these lower, K through 6, and I realize high school might be more complicated, but not much. At 400 grand, running a enterprise with 25 kids in it could be a lot more efficient. It makes you always wonder where the rest of the money go, because we know where it goes. Well, we know where it goes. I'm being polite here, not going to the students.
No.
And I think the reality is if the schools had to compete a little bit more, because it would just lead by definition to capitalistic better education, as long as, like any business enterprise, it's within a framework. And I get the other question here: public schools are not included, are they? You get confusing people by saying people could keep their public teacher, they could continue to send their kid to public school, and what happens to the money then?
Right. Well, you either opt into the system or you stay where you're at. So if you're at a public school, you're going to say there, all expenses paid, whatever is being paid right now. No money will flow into your savings account. So this education savings account is established when you announce your intention to leave the public school and to enroll in a participating accredited private school. If you return to public school, then your payments stop because you're not going to double debt. You'll stay there. So to answer, I think it's Lynn, answer Lynn's question directly, no, public schools will not, public school students will not be eligible for the ESA. That is to get the credit, right? The only way that you get it is when you exit the school and you need the money to go to school someplace else. So there's no double dipping.
And then there's the question about the 529. Can you answer
Yes.
that one? I know you're really good on that because you run a trust company. So work
Yeah.
on me here and tell everybody what a 529 is.
Yeah, 529 is a state-sponsored educational savings account that are sponsored by a number of states in the United States. And California has one, and you could set up a savings account. They're tax-advantaged accounts, and our legislation that it'll be administered under the same statutes, but it will not affect current 529 statutes. And our education savings account is not a 529 account. You want one, you set one up. But your education savings account, that's going to be managed as a pooled trust, and all of the earnings will come into it. And your investment should grow over time. And we mandated a very conservative investment policy, as you might imagine, that I would require. So they don't get to go off financing Solyndra or porpoise experiments. It's going to be
Now,
legit.
explain too, because I'm a little bit, because again, of course, with what minimum wage is going up to today, I could have probably made a career at McDonald's. But in my day, you worked to go through college, and this excess money, I'm still a bit fuzzy on how does it apply to a college fund for a student? Is it excess money that's left over, or how does that work?
Yeah, let me give you an example. Let's take a young man or woman these days who goes off to the military at age 18, which is great for a lot of young people. I recommend it to a lot of them. So they got off of 2, 3, 4 years of active duty. Now they've got the GI Bill. And they also maybe have some money that their grandparents put in the 529. And maybe this young lady was homeschooled for several years, and she's got money left over in the educational savings account. The ESA, great. Well, she could take all of that money and apply it to any school of higher education through anywhere in the United States, or any vocational school anywhere throughout the United States. We insisted that the money follow the student the way that and follow the student where she goes. Rather than to, at some point, some idiot wanted to say, oh, this could only be spent at California schools, or California University, and other such assorted nonsense. Well, that's not how the real world works. So we have it. And Mike, I want to go back and pick up one point here for a minute that we did. And remember, everybody, go to CaliforniaSchoolChoice.org and sign up. Let me know who you are. I'm going to get you a petition so you can go out and get yourself some freedom for the next generation. But let's start with the fact, and it says this right in our petition. Current per student spending in California is not $14,000. They spend a lot more than that. They spend $21,000. But let's just make it $20,000 per student. Let's take the average classroom size, 25 students, take it 20,000. Now, even if you went to their schools and you have trouble with arithmetic, just whip out your phone here and do the calculations. That's drum beat, drum roll, $500,000 per year for 25 students. And for K-12, that's 13 years, $6.5 million. And we're per classroom of 25, and we can't produce literate students who can go out and participate in our economy, participate fully in our democracy, and to take their rightful place in society, no matter who they are, where they came from, or what language they speak. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an outrage. And this is why our state is failing. They don't know from nada. And like Netter, they think the civics is a Honda automobile. That's where we are. And it's, the joke aside, it's not an understatement, is it? Yeah.
Nope. And before we roll the end here, again, I want to tell you a couple things. Time for Tim's Corner. Mike, stay on for a couple seconds. Yes. Everybody out there, again, I'll get to my ending rant in 1 second, but a little bit time for Tim's Corner here. Tim, you want to chime in a bit with something intelligent? Because I certainly have got nothing when it comes to that.
Well, you got plenty of intelligent things to say, Mike, but that hearing that happened this last Monday, they seem to cherry pick their witnesses. And their witnesses had not even worked a recall. They've only observed recalls. And how is that fair to us people, especially the ones that are out there working hard, especially for the individuals in the future that want to start a recall petition? How is that right for the people?
Yes. Well, it was not right. And everything they do is nothing but Soviet-style political theater. It's phony, just like everything else they say and do. Now, I want everybody to pay attention here. They can only get away with this because of the K-12 system. They train up idiots. They train them to obey so that they'll swallow this kind of thing. And the only way that we're going to turn this around is to get control of our children and start teaching them right so we can change the political conditions on the ground. But these people are not going to do the right thing.
So what Tim's referring to actually at the hearing, right, where they gave us a minute each. And Tim, I'm gonna go ahead and out you to the state of California. It was pretty funny, right? Because they gave each of us a minute testimony. Can I tell them, Tim?
Well, they gave them 5-10 minutes per witness, and they gave us, the public, just 1 minute.
But then when I'm listening to the phone-in witnesses, which is the joke you made at the beginning of the show, we're supposed to get back to, I got my minute plus, they yanked me off. Orrin got his minute plus, almost had the Sergeant of Arms call. Tim calls in on the phone, and then another voice calls in about 5 minutes later in the call-in testimony. I'm going, damn, it goes, my name is Mike, and I know that voice, and it was Tim. So God bless you, dude, for using an alter ego.
My middle name happens to be Mike. How about that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of Mikes around here. But anyway,
we got 3 mics tonight.
Our point being this, as we roll the end of our show here, okay? We have an infrastructure that we need to protect that wants to prevent us in California for having a voice. And Orrin and I and a lot of other people were up in the state capitol fighting to keep that voice. Fighting to keep that voice isn't going to do us in California any good if, again, you don't vote like what happened in the recall election and you don't sign things to get on the ballot, which we're talking about with school choice. Now, tomorrow night, to let you know, we are doing at the Pineapple Hill and Grill, Pineapple Hill and Saloon, Angela Marston's place at 6 o'clock. We have an event going on. Because it's the holidays, ho friggin' ho, we're not getting the turnout that we expected. $35 gets you dinner and a couple drinks, and Mike Alexander is going to be there. Eric Early is going to be there because we need an attorney general that can support us. And most importantly, everybody, I'm going to be emceeing with a lot of good comedy. And we're going to have people from Children's Health Network, etc. So if you're in the area at 6 o'clock, up in Van Nuys, which is near Burbank, etc., drop in, but get involved. Help us get signatures to give California a chance. Mike, I want to thank you so much for coming on our show tonight. Remember, go out, get petitions, get them signed. We're building infrastructure around California. There's about, give or take, around 100 days left. But these, again, there's a lot on the ballot this year. What we need to do is starting. We talk about doing things for future generations. And as I started off at the beginning of the show, and you've heard me rant, and you've heard me rave a lot about before, the politicians in California don't care about the people. They only care about politics. So let me tell you something. They're here for a meteor. They're here for just a little bit. They resign. They get out of office to get a better job. And as long as we walk the face of the earth, it is our job to make it better for the next generation. And that's talked about a lot. But the reality is we can't leave the education of our future generation in the hands of people that don't care about our children. They care only more about making vaccine companies rich, about teacher unions more powerful. The reality is it's up to you, California, to take your state back. And to do that, it's the power of these initiatives and things we're going to bring you each week on our town hall. It's blown up beyond the recall. It's literally, when we're talking about rebuilding California, we have to rebuild every aspect, starting with the education system. We have a chance in 2022 to take this state back, and that starts with taking it back for generations with the educational system. It took them a generation to ruin it, but we could take it back in a brief time. Go out, sign up for school choice. I hope to see you tomorrow. We will see you next Wednesday. Everybody out there, remember, it's your damn state. Take it back. Sign this petition. Unite with us. Unite with Rebuild California. Go to our website. Volunteer. Get involved. Do everything you can. Because again, the politicians want you to move. We're staying and fighting. Fight for your kids, fight for education, fight for your state, do everything you can. It's your state, California. It's your job. Thank you and good night.
Back to you.
Good night, everyone.